The purpose of a master plan is to create a plan that implements a vision for the future. Usually it is a 5 or 10-year plan. In contrast, an action plan is a 1-year plan. There is considerable flexibility in its elements. The purpose of the plan will determine which elements are emphasized. The model used is adapted from Copeland's Camp Design Master Planning Basic. Since the purpose of the planning process is on developing an implementation plan, the fifth inventory item of determining costs was moved to the implementation phase. In addition, Brookside Gardens is used as the primary example in the master planning process. The first step in the master planning process is to determine the process used. Determining the process is subdivided into determining the purpose of the plan and determining its methodology. The purpose of the master plan for Brookside Gardens was to determine the implementation plan for future construction and renovation projects. The methodology was adjusted to accomplish this objective. Using an adaptation of Copeland's model, the inventory phase was subdivided into 4 subsections. The subsections can be completed as separate studies, and their emphasis can be increased or decreased as appropriate. Market determines clients, stakeholders, and visitors who will use the park and facility. Program determines the experience the park and facility seeks to deliver. Sites and facilities focuses on inventorying resource opportunities. Operations involves support services including maintenance, safety, and concessions. Determining the market is subdivided into marketing analysis, public involvement, and the use of secondary sources. The 4 Ps provide a good starting point for performing a marketing analysis. The first P is the product or program provided. Price includes fees and charges. Promotion focuses on attracting the public to the facility. Place or the location of the gardens was predetermined. The marketing analysis can profile potential users by developing socio-demographic, geographic, or psychographic profiles. Public involvement can utilize hearings, surveys, focus groups. In addition, identify stakeholders and concerned citizens. It can help to avoid adverse situations later in the process. Secondary sources can be extremely useful in helping to determine trends and potential demand. There is a wide array of government publications available. The 3 underlying factors of the program are the agency or owner's experience in activities and legislative issues. The agency or owner of the land or facility are the primary determinants of its eventual use. Agencies are guided by their mission and vision statements. Private owners have more latitude. Disney had a vision for what were orange groves in Orange County, Florida, and implemented a theme park, Disney World. The park or facility delivers activities and experiences. These are determined by the agency and the owner and by the legislative considerations. Legislation, such as zoning laws and acts of Congress, can influence the program delivered. Site and facilities are subdivided into cultural, physical, and biological factors. Cultural factors include human-related activities and impacts such as boundaries, historical and archaeological, land use, transportation, buildings, and utilities. The boundaries determine the study area. Usually the boundary is the physical boundaries of the property, but it can be a partial area or the study area also. Begin the search for historical and archaeologically significant features at the local historical society. Typically, land use focuses on the residential, commercial, agriculture, and other types of uses. Consistent with its program, Brookside Gardens identified garden zones along with visitor service zones, propagation and maintenance zones, and underutilized areas. Transportation identify circulation patterns including roads, trails, and other patterns of movement. Identify buildings and other structures on the property including outbuildings, barns, gazebos, and other structures. Brookside Gardens subdivides buildings into program-related and maintenance and propagation or support service structures. Typically, utilities include electricity, water, sewage, and possibly gas. Availability of utilities often determines program and facility location. Brookside Gardens identified inadequate utilities that are a potential limiting factor. Physical factors include the non-living attributes of the resource and include geology and soils, climate, topography, hydrology and wetlands, and perceptual characteristics. Geologically, North America is divided into large geomorphic provinces. Brookside Gardens is located on the Piedmont and is close to where the Piedmont drops off to the coastal plain. Soil is composed of a mixture of clay, sand, and silt. The Soil Conservation Service has mapped soil types. Soil types can affect vegetation and the carrying capacity of the land. Brookside Gardens is primarily silty loam. North America is subdivided into 7 climate zones. The zones can affect the vegetation and recreational opportunities provided. Brookside Gardens lies in the mixed humid zone. Topography consists of elevation, terrain, and slope. For Brookside, the low point is at an elevation of 300 feet, and the high point is at 423 feet. There is a 35-foot change between the visitor center and the conservatory, which can affect trails and user flow patterns. Generally, construction favors level or slightly sloped areas. Anything over 25% grade is difficult to build upon. Hydrology and wetlands focus on water-related areas including lakes, ponds, rivers, streams, bogs, wetlands, bays, and marshes. A permit may be required from the Army Corps of Engineers before filling in a wetlands for construction. Relating to the soil's runoff potential and infiltration rate, the lowering of the water table was identified in the Brookside Master Plan. Regarding flooding, the master plan indicates that there might be an issue with the conservatory and some of the parking lots. Leaky dams were also identified as a problem. Perceptual characteristics focus on views and other notable visual items. The Brookside Master Plan identified scenic views, notable specimen trees, and frost pockets. Views can be identified and enhanced, such as in the view toward the Japanese-style tea house, taken from the reflection terrace. Biological factors include the flora and fauna, identifying endangered species also. Determination of the flora begins with determining the prevailing forest type. North America forest type is in part related to the geomorphic region, soils, and prevailing climate. The predominant forest type for Brookside Gardens is a deciduous forest. Unfortunately, its overstory is changing with the ash blight killing the garden's large stand of mature ash trees. The informal gardens, such as the crude garden with its Japanese-style tea house, and formal gardens are major features of the Brookside Gardens. Animal populations can be inferred from the vegetation present. Brookside Gardens would have a typical array of mammals and reptiles associated with deciduous forests. A deer fence suggests the presence of deer. If a more accurate fauna census is needed, examination of scat and photographic methods can be used. If there are any endangered species present, develop a plan to accommodate them. When planning a park or facility, planning for maintenance, safety, and concessions is extremely important. Often operations are overlooked. When designing the popular San Antone Riverwalk, maintenance and trash removal were initially overlooked and were accessible primarily by boat. Consider police and EMS access. When designing Disney World, Disney made the second floor the ground floor so that they could continually service the concessionaires and other services. When discussing circulation, Brookside Gardens addressed many of these operational issues. If the inventory phase addresses what will be done, the implementation phase addresses how it will be done. First, identify projects or tasks. Next, determine funding sources. Third, prioritize them. And fourth, schedule their completion. Brookside Gardens is illustrative of the process. 5 phases were identified in the 2001 master plan. Due to projected funding limitations, they were expanded into 15 phases. Funding became available, enabling Phase 1 and 2 to be completed together. The last phase is the review and final plan. The review process noted in this phase should be a continuation of involving stakeholders and the public mentioned in the marketing phase. Consider the final plan organically, and perhaps using the term publish plan is more appropriate. Revisit the plan, modify it, and update it as needed. In summary, the master planning process develops projects to be implemented in the future, usually the next 5 or 10 years. The process inventories the market, including its users and stakeholders. The program includes the desired experience of the owners or agency and legislation. The sited facilities offer resource opportunities. Don't forget the operational needs of maintenance, safety, and concessions. Key to the master planning process is developing feasible projects and tasks that can be funded in a reasonable time. Brookside Gardens was used to illustrate the process. The site development process takes the projects identified in the master plan and develops them into actual plans and blueprints, and eventually into facilities and landscapes. Master planning is an important component in designing the experience.